Okay, so we're on my other account, and we're going to take a look at how to set up controls. So, aircraft, tank. I'm going to take this tank into a test drive, thusly, click, and we'll set it for arcade battles, because you're probably going to be playing arcade to start with. And a good way to set up your controls is to go into a test drive and then set the controls up and practice them out right there as you have the tank with you. So let's do that. Escape, controls, and now we see tank controls. We can also adjust aircraft, ship. Ships are coming to the game eventually, and I have access to them during the closed beta testing. Common controls have a lot to do with like your map and the UI and targeting, things like that. And spectator camera, you don't really need to mess with that very much. That's more for people that are looking at replays and things. Okay, so tank controls. This is fine. Tank throttle should be fine. WSAD. You don't need to set up those brakes individually. Cruise control I set to page up and page down, and let me show you how to change a setting. So here we are on tank transmission cruise control up by clicking on it. Down here you can remove the binding by clicking. See what we did there? And then you press assign button and you press the button that you want it to be assigned to. And if it's already assigned to something else, let's say I wanted to assign it to hold on. Let's say I want to assign it to page down, which is already assigned. This pops up and it says the button's already assigned on tank transmission gear cruise control down. Would you like to add, replace, or cancel? If you hit cancel, then you won't change the binding. If you hit replace, then it moves the binding that was on this up to what you just chose for it to be. You get what I'm saying? And if you hit add, then it has both of these things have that button binding. So now if I was to press page down, it would try to turn up the cruise control and turn down the cruise control at the same time. That's a problem. So I'm going to clear it. I'm going to assign a button to page up. Page up to speed up the cruise control, page down to speed it down. What is cruise control? It's just like cruise control in your car. It sets a speed for your tank that's either low, medium, or high, or reverse. And your tank will drive at that speed without you pressing any other buttons. It's useful when you have something like a low rank stabilizer that only works when your tank is moving at low speed, and it can be useful for a few other things in a few other situations, and that's why it's nice to have it set up to something that's sort of out of the way but still accessible to you, like the page up and page down buttons. Driver assistance mode, I've never used it. Fire from the main gun, left mouse button. Fire from the secondary guns, I have shift and left mouse button or space. So secondary guns on your tank can be other cannons, or yeah, that's pretty much it. Some tanks have 2 turrets and you can fire from the second turret with that. So I didn't even need to make it shift click. Let's just set it. Whoops, that's the wrong thing. Here I am messing up again. So let's click on this one, let's clear it, and just set it to space. So now when we press the space bar, we'll fire all the guns. Fire from the main one, left click or space. Fire from secondary, space. Fire machine guns, space. Special guns I've set to mouse button 5, which is one of the buttons on my mouse. And I also want to bind shift click to it. It's also, see, it's already set to active scouting. You know what, I'm going to add it. So now shift click will scout, and it will also fire, if you're in a tank, the missiles or the rockets, if there's missiles or rockets mounted on the tank. And yes, how cool is that there are tanks with missiles or rockets mounted on them. The mouse button 5 or shift left click will fire those off. I don't do weapon selection. That's something that you can set up, and it's the same as these other things. You bind a key to it, and you use it. Pretty simple. Smoke grenade G and H. That works just fine. Some tanks have smoke grenades or a smoke screen producing device like an ESS. Zoom camera, you don't actually have to use this control because there's another way to control it. Sniper mode C. It's normally set to, I think, shift, which is pretty awkward. You have to reach down to get to it. C is a lot closer to where I hold my fingers and a lot more convenient for me. So I set it to C. Set it to what you like. But again, if you use my settings, they've worked out for me for a long time, so they'll probably work for you as well. And when it comes to the aircraft settings, I'm really going to recommend that you have certain things set up. Binoculars, you definitely want to have something set up with this. That's the B button. And here's me using the binoculars. Isn't that cool? You can even line up your gun with the binoculars, and then as soon as you go out of binocular mode, if you're holding down the fire button, the gun fires, and that can be very helpful, as you can see. Okay, back to controls. So, control camera, binoculars, stabilizer mode. You don't generally have to mess with this, but I have it set to Shift S. It's not normally bound, so it's normally like this, and you just go assign button, hold Shift and press S. Shift S. Target tracking tank, I've unbound because I never want to use it. I don't like using target tracking. These things I don't need to have set up. All this is good. Mouse wheel tank. I've changed it from zoom axis ground to sight distance control, and I'll talk about that right now. So when I go into sniper mode, you can see this better. You see where my reticle is. Now I'm mouse wheeling back, and it's increasing the distance that I'm aiming for. So I'll go over the top of this Panther probably. Yeah, you see that? Now if I mouse wheel forward, it decreases the distance I'm aiming for. You see that distance number going down? That's the distance to the target. So if I look at this Panther, it's at 663 meters. See that on the right of the reticle? See that pop up in arcade? 664. So if I aim for 650, I should be just about right. And then we fire, and you see it goes pretty much where we were aiming. And then we don't have to manually aim the cursor up above our target. So I've reset it, and I would normally have to aim. You see how the X, let me light that up for you. See how the X is up above the Panther at this point? But if I change my aiming reticle, I can put the X right on, or the crosshair right on someone and hit them at 650 when it's set for 650, or likewise. This target is at 900. I can hit him directly at 900. In arcade, why would I ever want to use this? You guys see how the little hit marker is showing that I'm going to hit that Panther? Where's my hit marker? I don't get a hit marker when I'm aiming further than 1 kilometer away. So I can put the reticle on someone. It says 1200. So now I change the distance to 1200. And let's make it 1250. And even though I don't have a hit indicator, I can aim for him and hit him. Is that cool? You can hit targets out to what, over 2,000 meters with that strategy. You see what we did there? And if you don't understand that, then you'll have plenty of time to practice with it and see what I mean. Suffice to say, setting up sight distance controls is helpful even in arcade. So it's a good thing to get a handle on right away. Where was I? Sight distance control, mouse wheel. Suspension control doesn't matter until you get a vehicle with hydro-pneumatic suspension, and I still don't have a vehicle with hydro-pneumatic suspension after all this time. Tank repair I set to F, works well for me. All of these should be fine. Active scouting I've set to left shift and mouse button or the comma. That's just me. You set it to what you want. Rangefinder R, again that works for me. Crosshair lighting you have to set up yourself. So I do assign button and I hit tilde, that's the top left button on my keyboard. And that's what I used earlier to light up the crosshair. Shortstop tank, I've never used this, and then sight distance control, I've set this up. So let me show you what I did. You've got for down, mouse wheel down, for up, mouse wheel up, and for reset, it's middle mouse button. So you go edit axis, you go increase value, assign button, and you mouse wheel up, decrease value, assign button, and you mouse wheel back, and then reset axis value, assign button, and you press that middle mouse button. And the rest of this should be fine the way it is. If you need to invert it, you can click that. I don't recommend it for this particular axis, but other axes you may want to invert. And then relative control, yes. So that is tank controls. Later on I'll get into air controls, but for now it sounds like Tank Toddler needs me, so I'm going back to being a daddy. Guys, hope you enjoyed this quick video, an absolute beginner's guide to setting up tank controls. Catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.